'cause I want to share my pictures. Harjit, Harjit, I don't know if you're still there. I don't know who was photobombing who there, but that was good to see.
Yeah,
uh,
we caught Harjeet eating lunch by himself, playing on his phone, and I think I just selfied right in front of his phone and surprised him. So, of
that works.
course,
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, Rudy, that's the example of what happens when you don't win. I see your picture there. So yeah, people should see that. Yes, that's a good one, you and Harjit. And then this one, this was a good one. I saw it on Twitter, right? So David was taking a picture of the groom at the same time somebody else was taking a picture of David. So what I think the guy challenged you to post your picture or something, right?
he did, and I replied.
Very nice. And
Perfect.
you had a cat situation.
Yeah, I came home from MMS with some kittens living underneath inside my car somewhere, so I had to take pretty much all the bottom apart, the under panels, whatever, and flush them out. It was not fun after my flight back.
we're
So
we're we're thankful, and the cats are thankful that you know how to dismantle your car. So all right. So with that, let me hand to you and thank you for your time and everything you're doing here in the community. We had a great time in the miss. Glad you were there. Attendees loved you. So thank you.
and thank you for having me. And I'm real happy to be here. Can everyone see the OSD Cloud slide presentation? Everyone see it okay?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, good. So, and this is not a rehash of MMS. I did a presentation on OSD Cloud, but it was more or less the Azure session was focused on using um, SAS tokens for storage and Key Vault to contain scripts and access. And literally the day after my presentation, I ended up approaching it a different way. And so this is the plan B for deploying a custom image from Azure Storage with a PowerShell GUI. So let's get started. So 4 topics. We are going to keep it simple. The deployment steps, um, cloud functions, modules, and scripts. How much is this going to cost? And briefly, I'm going to show you the setup in Azure Storage. So the deployment steps, I'm not lying. I did want to keep this presentation easy. There are 5 steps. You're going to start up WinPE, connect to Azure. Once you connect to Azure, you're going to find your WIMs in storage. You're going to pick a WIM to deploy, and then you're going to deploy it. Probably the easiest deployment process I've ever seen. And the kids really make this slide. So what makes it work is what's called cloud functions, modules, and scripts. And this is something I've been working on for several months. And what this is writing code, writing PowerShell scripts, putting it on GitHub, and then calling those scripts from PowerShell, pulling the content in PowerShell and executing the scripts. And this has allowed me to get more flexible with the coding and to make things more universal. One thing everyone's probably seen if they've seen OSD Cloud is OSD Cloud Sandbox. It's a method of getting OSD Cloud to work on any PE, and the functionality of how we get to an Azure OSD Cloud GUI is going to be very similar. So as I stated, the PowerShell files, they sit on GitHub. We're going to get the scripts from the raw URL that GitHub gives us using invoke REST method. And then we're going to take what the string we've received from invoke REST method, and we're going to invoke expression on that, which will execute it. And so these functions are at a web address, functions.osdcloud.com. And I'll go ahead and bring up how it looks in a browser.
Those Democrats take care of. That's Mitch McConnell's quote on one of those tapes. And Kevin McCarthy making abundantly clear that after January 6th.
Huh. So am I still online here?
Yeah, I muted everybody else. You're good.
Okay. So I simply in my browser went to functions.osdcloud.com, and that's simply going to be a redirect to a raw GitHub file. And basically this gets loaded and it contains all the PowerShell commands that we need to get everything started. And we see here that if we're in a Windows phase of WinPE, we're going to load up all these PowerShell modules. And so these are cloud modules that exist in the OSD GitHub repo. And you'll see that they are different. If we're in OOBE, it's going to load up a different set of modules. And if we're in full Windows, we finally get a different set. And we can pull those in PowerShell, like I mentioned, using invoke REST method. And you'll know you got it to work when you actually get the script returned. And you'll see the whole code here. And if we want to execute this, we can simply invoke expression on the return that we get from invoke REST method. And there's really nothing to it. All we're going to see is a readout of we have successfully mapped to functions.osdcloud and a version, and it's telling us we're in Windows. We're not in OBE, we're not in WinPE. And I will notice that my prompt is going to show OSDCloud at the beginning. And so within the scope of Windows, I can git command, and all of the, most of, not all of the OSDCloud functions, they're prefixed with OSDCloud. If I were to close this PowerShell session, they won't exist. So the benefit of doing this is they're loaded in memory, but there's nothing installed, and there's nothing persistent. So we see I've got some, a couple autopilot functions, some install module, and the autopilot functions are really nice. I can test if I have an autopilot profile, false, on this device. But if I did have an autopilot profile, I can get, let's see, I can show autopilot profile, which I don't have one. And there's also a get autopilot events. So if you want to easily check things from autopilot without installing anything, this is a great way to do that. And in the scope of WinPE, we can actually run this particular at the bottom, the cloud function az.osdcloud.com, and that will get us into the Azure OSD Cloud GUI. So here I've got a WinPE session, looks quite small. I can change the resolution very simply if I have the OSD module installed. And I'm going to kick off how we get to the GUI for Azure OSD Cloud. And it's the same basic command that I went over with when I loaded the functions in Windows, invoke expression, which I abbreviate IEX. And I'm going to do my REST method for AZ GUI. And this is your entry point into Azure OSD Cloud GUI. Very easy to remember. And the big benefit of keeping it a cloud command is I don't need anything loaded other than PowerShell and WinPE to make this work. In fact, if I had a WinPE from MDT, for example, I can simply open a command prompt and I can execute it from here. I believe I'll make this font a little bigger and we'll see if we can get this to work. So simply from a command prompt in an MDT WinPE, same command, except I have to type in PowerShell. And it's going to load all the dependencies I need to image this device without even having the OSD module installed. It's going to take care of everything I need. And so I wanted to show this example that this is quite a universal tool that can be used. We're going to go away from this MDT WinPE and focus on this session here. Now, the first thing we have to do, the second step, the first step was getting to WinPE. The second step is to connect to Azure. And this function here, this AZ GUI, has started a function called connect AZ OSDCloud. And this is going to give me a challenge response code where I can simply open this URL, Microsoft.com device login, and simply enter this code in a web browser. And this could be on your cell phone. This could be the help desk helping someone remote authenticate to Azure. And I'm simply going to enter that code, and I'm going to be prompted for an Azure account, and I'm going to pick whatever one I want. And it will prompt me to confirm that I'm trying to connect to a PowerShell session, which is this session here. And this should authenticate. It'll take a couple seconds. I did receive a warning. I do have multiple tenants. If I only had one tenant, I wouldn't see this at all. So this is understood. So I'm simply going to select which tenant I want to connect to. And then the next step, it's going to map me to pretty much everything I need in order to talk to Azure Storage and several other Azure functions. And this is what the GUI looks like. It's very basic at this point, and that's because there's a lot of planning going on and how to make this work. But you'll see I've got a drop down for storage account, container, and I can select multiple WIMs. And I have very limited options at this point. I am able to change my image index, but the pure benefit of this is this can be a custom WIM. This could be a WIM like LTSC here that Microsoft doesn't share out. You can't just download it. You need volume license, and it's a way for you to take these images and put them in a place, a storage account where you can deploy it from any device anywhere. So I'm going to cancel out of this, and we'll go back and we'll look at the PowerShell session. And we'll notice that it's set a lot of global variables. Now, these will probably be hidden in favor of logging, but these variables are created so that we can go in and I can see my global Azure headers are in here. Here's my A80 graph access token. Here's my header. So very neat. Everything is here. So if I need to do some graph requests, I'm going to have all of the variables that I need. So makes things quite handy. Let's see if we can see a list of what they all are. I've got my A80 graph access tokens, headers, AZ account, context, environment, access tokens. They're all stored in here. Now, if we go back up a little bit and we see right now, this function here is where it's going to look for the images itself. I'll see if I can make that a little larger for readability. That's very large. And it looked in all my storage accounts and it saved them to a global variable. And then it looked for OSDCloud storage accounts and it saved them in this variable. So what I want to do is I want to see what kind of storage accounts it found, because when it scanned for Windows images, it only looked in one storage account called OSD library, and it looked in a specific container called library. But I have quite a few storage accounts. Sorry about making everyone dizzy. Let's see. There we go. And we can see that it's found two. The first storage account that it found, there were no WIM files for it to download. But if we want to look and see all the storage accounts, we can see I've got quite a few. So there was a challenge when I first started developing how to get WIM files from Azure Storage. If you're a global admin, you could have hundreds of storage accounts, and we don't want to look through and we don't want to enumerate all these storage accounts. And so that's one problem. The second problem is, how do we give the least amount of privileges to whoever's imaging? And that privilege is read. All the user who is going to image this device needs is read. So let's go ahead and we're going to reset this. Clear screen first. And we're going to let that run. And we're going to jump back to the presentation while that's prepping. Now, going back to these cloud functions, modules, and scripts, I did mention that they were online. They do sit in my GitHub repo for OSD. And so if you want to review them, look through them, they're all here. And we can see under this OSDCloud subdomains, we can see exactly how AZ GUI works. The whole function, the whole script is in here. And I've documented on OSDCloud.com what cloud functions and scripts are. So if you want to get a little more in depth and a little better understanding, and this is key of why we do them, you can read about it through OSDCloud.com underneath the Azure section. And also in the Azure section, you'll find that there's setup. So there are some details, there are very good details on how to set up your storage account and containers in order for this to all work. And I'm going to show you that in just a second. So we're going to come back to that. So costs. Anyone want to take a guess how much this costs on a per device basis to image from Azure storage? Maybe you need to come off mute, or we can just proceed. But somebody, anybody?
50 cents.
50 cents. That is pretty damn good. That is pretty damn good. That's almost a raffle winner right there. But the cost per deployment, if we're looking at a scale of 200 deployments a month at 5 gigs an image, comes out to about 40 cents per deployment, which when you think about it, the cost is incredibly cheap versus having a server, a dedicated resource server, or paying for server licensing costs. So the cost of entry in order to get an image and machine, a custom image from the cloud, is ungodly cheap. And this is calculated at 200 deployments. So that's a terabyte of read. And of course, if you're not going to do that, if you're going to do 1/10 of that, then you're simply going to take 1/10 of this $80.16, which is about $8 for 20 deployments. And so the cost to set it up and to keep the WIMs in Azure, $1.41 per month for 20 gigs of storage, that's pretty cheap. So you can also think about and consider using this as like a disaster recovery. One good example I can give is, you're infected by ransomware, and you need to restore your devices, but you don't know if your imaging environment on-prem is been attacked, or maybe it's shut down because you don't want that risk. And so this gives you an alternative, an excellent alternative for cheap. So we're going to table the Q&A, and we're actually going to go into Azure and explain how we set up a storage account to work with OSDCloud. And I don't want to get in details of how to create a storage account. That's going to be in the documentation. So right now I'm starting with a plain storage account with a few separate storage containers. You can see I've got some called Insider, Retail. And if I look in Insider, okay, no permission here. Switch to access key. I've got the beta and the dev, Windows 11, no big deal. Server images, okay. Now, in order to make this work so OSDCloud sees it, I've got to assign permission to the storage account, which I can come here and add a role assignment. And I need to ensure that the technician has reader to the storage account. Now that only allows the technician to read the metadata of the storage account, not the data itself. So the second step we need to do is under tags for this storage account, we have to tag this as an OSDCloud storage account. And this is how we locate we locate the storage account among all the storage accounts out there. And you see, I've simply created a tag OSDCloud, and I've assigned it whatever value I want. And if I want to come back here into my virtual machine and authenticate here, let's see if I can see this new storage account. Authenticating. Just 5 more seconds. Again, I'm being prompted from my tenant. And now I see in the GUI, nothing has changed. I don't have any more images than what I used to have. And if I look back, I'll actually see that it found the storage account, Azure OSDCloud, that I was working with, and it found 4 containers, but 0 permission to actually read inside these containers. So it couldn't find any images, and that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at no change. And so let's go ahead and assign permission. We'll reset this again. Now let's go back into Azure, and I'll show you exactly what permissions we need for these containers. Now, one thing I can do is I can assign container read role assignment in the actual storage account itself, or I can get specific and say, okay, only my dev team needs this insider, and my server team needs the server images. So I simply want to enable volume, and I'm going to come here into access control, role assignment, and I'm going to add a role assignment. And the role assignment that I need to add is storage blob data reader. And this is what's going to grant access to my user to read these WIM files that exist in the storage account. And I'm going to come back. I've granted this user in volume, and I want to give them retail images as well. So I'll simply repeat that process of adding a role assignment of storage blob data reader. And I'll select the member. Great. So now my user should be able to see 2 of these containers. I'm going to switch to my MDT session here and see if I can get that to work. Select my subscription, and we'll see if it can find some images that exist in those containers that it now has privileges. And I'm not seeing it. I probably have to re-auth. So we're going to have to start this again. But I do have another session. I do have another VM we can use. So let's see if this one will work. Demos never work right, do they? Any questions while we're waiting for this to come up? No questions. I've got crickets. Okay, this one worked just fine. I can see that I now have 2 storage accounts. Azure OSDCloud was the one I had been working in. I've got retail and volume. Under retail, I can select either one of these WIMs, or under volume, I've got my LTSC and a Windows 11 64. From there, I can simply start the process The drivers will be automatically downloaded as driver packs from vendors if we're working on a real machine, but this is a virtual machine, so there are no driver packs necessary. And so we're going to at least let this continue until it wipes the disk, and then we should see the download of the WIM from the storage account. And let's see if we can get this downloaded in less than a minute. So we're watching grass grow at this point, but this is pretty much the goal that I wanted us to get to. And the point is, this opens up the possibility, the availability for us to use Azure, cheap Azure, to be able to deploy images globally, to deploy custom images, or to have a disaster recovery solution available anytime. And the setup, literally the setup in Azure takes less than 10 minutes. And again, I apologize. This is what I wanted to have working by MMS MOA, but unfortunately my brain wasn't smart enough to figure it all out before the conference. So I hope this somewhat makes up for that. So I'm going to open Q&A now. This is really the extent of the demo. I wasn't kidding. This is a very simple process and very easy to implement. So let's chat. Come off mute. What are your thoughts? Who's going to try this out?
I put this on my task list. This is Mike Davis. I put this on my task list to try it. I really can't wait to try it out.
Is this Mike?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Recognize your voice. Your laugh. Hey, it's good to hear from you. Yeah, definitely on your list. Now, I've actually had an image pull from Azure in less than a minute. It's taken a little longer here. My connection's on wireless. It will probably be in the neighborhood of 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes to download, which is pretty quick. So,
how's your home bandwidth usage look over the last month and your tests from Azure?
You know, it's one of those things. Once you do one, it's kind of boring. You don't really have to do it anymore.
Yeah.
You cross that finish line. And so when I originally worked on this, I had the command line, and over the last few days, I've added the GUI, and it's actually been pretty easy. I mean, I had this done Monday, more or less, waiting for, you know, this user group meetup. And I love laying down exclusive content on user groups because you guys are the best. I'm not even going to blog about how to access this probably until Monday or Tuesday. So you guys have a head start.
Thanks.
But yeah, I'm sure I've got unlimited bandwidth at home. So I don't know. I haven't checked. I probably
That's
need
nice. I see there's a question. Any chance this could be used with other cloud storage like AWS?
You know, I have signed an exclusive agreement with Azure. No, I've actually looked into it and thought about it. I'm probably going to need more than one person. You're actually number two who's asked about Azure storage. And I tell you, a lot of hours go into making something like this work. And for two people, that's borderline custom work, you know, which I've never done. But you know, there would have to be more of a need from the audience. We focus on Autopilot and an Intune Azure CM world, and I think that's where most of the uptick is going to be. But I'll definitely consider Azure. I may even post a poll on Twitter, or you know, we've got over 100 people here. Please add in chat if you're interested in S3. It's probably going to be a few months before I even look at it because there are some good things coming now that we can connect to Azure Storage and PE. So there are some planned additions, and that's partly why the GUI is kept very simple because, you know, we're making certain that we do it right. But yeah, thanks for the question, and please let me know in chat. Just say yes, I'm interested in S3, and we'll see what we can do.
Hey, Dave,
So,
it's Keith.
Yeah, let's do
What's
this.
happening?
Hey,
I got you. I used this previously, and I know that the updates that you just made on it, you know I'll be playing with it soon.
I'm
Because
not
I'll be using
just
it
talking.
to.
Is this Keith?
Yeah, this Keith.
Oh, Keith, that was a good burger, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a good burger. Yeah, I saw it cut me out that picture. No, just playing. I'm just kidding. But no, I'll be playing with this a little bit on a nonprofit that I work for. So trying to get some consistency on building out their machines that they get donated to them. So I love it.
Awesome. Good to hear from you. Chat, ping me anytime, man. I'll give you a hand working with it. And Gary Block, who's on, he's in the audience today. He's worked with Rich on using OSDCloud imaging, so he may have some tips, that he may be able to share. And
Yep,
thank you.
Gary and I have conversed before as well. So yeah.
It's your guys' time. Let's what do you want? Fire away.
Any more questions for David?
I was just going to say hey to Keith as well.
Sounds like you guys might have had a little get together at MMS, huh?
Man, it's been a long time coming. So
Yeah. Good.
Did everyone get the gist of how easy it was? I mean, quick show of hands or voice? I mean, was this complicated by any means, or was this pretty basic?
It's nice and basic. It's nice.
Good.
Is it possible to do a lab? I mean,
is it possible to do what?
A lab, say a personal lab instead of backed by E5 or E3 licensing.
Yeah, you don't need any of that. All you need is Azure storage and a credit card. And Microsoft will gladly take your money. But yes, it is. If you sign up with your Azure trial, if you haven't had one, I think it'll give you $150 your first month, and you'll be able to go from there. You can add your credit card if you have to pay as you go, and if you're looking at and let's pull up some costs. Let me see if I can show that to you real quick. Just for personal use, it's really not that expensive. If you think about it, having your images in the cloud ready to go at any time, I've already got an estimate here, and the monthly estimate, and I'm in South Central. You want standard tier. Premium is not worth the extra cost. It costs about 5 times more, and as you saw, my image completed in about 5 minutes. Not necessary. Access tier needs to be hot. If you change it to cool, you're going to see this monthly cost for 20 gigs go up considerably.
Wow.
You see this here, 51,000. Yeah. And that's because you're being charged more on data retrieval. No, that's 5,000 terabyte. No, data retrieval is actually 1 terabyte. And data write we'll do in the neighborhood. This is 200 deployments here, and let's look at the cost. Okay, access to 1204. All right. Now the bandwidth, 1,000 gigabyte outbound plus adding the bandwidth. So we're looking at 90 here with bandwidth. So if we change this to cool or to hot, you see it goes down to $1.41. So dirt cheap. 20 gigs would be about roughly four images. You want 10 images, so you need 50 gigs, and your monthly cost right there. That's without any bandwidth. Well, you're going to have 50 gigs of upload costs, but as you can see, $2 a month for 50 gigs of images in your own Azure storage. That's pretty kick-ass. And you can get to this pricing calculator. I just Googled just here, and don't be fooled. You'll see storage account, but make sure you add bandwidth. And if you have, if you're going to do 20 deployments at 5 gigs a piece, is going to be 100 gigs of bandwidth roughly. And you can see we're under the bandwidth threshold. And so your total cost for 20 deployments is how much, guys? Can someone read that for me? I can't see that. Right there on the bottom that I've highlighted.
$1.96.
$1.96.
Yes, for personal use, you could very easily spend less than $2 a month having your images ready to go, or just to show off to potential clients. There you are, $2.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Very good. Gary, I like your pro tip. Don't sign up to several dev tenants with different with using the same cell phone number. Get flagged for suspicious activity. I see. Nice.
I've still got some time, so if you want to ask away. Hey, Paul, I see you there. How's it going?
Any more questions? Anybody?
Hop in a chat here. Yeah, pro tip.
I have a question. This is Dawn Wertz.
You done?
Hey, long time no talk to.
Uh-huh.
Going back on the trying to reduce my cost for my home lab because I got my bill last month. It was kind of scary. So I have the Visual Studio subscription from work. So what is I keep seeing on there's like an office developer subscription that gives you 25. Does anyone know anything about that? Is that what you want to make your tenants in, or
Yeah,
does anyone know anything about the Visual Studio subscription? I know that's not specific to your topic.
If you have a studio subscription, you should be able to get $150 a month in Azure credit. And that is different. That is completely separate from the M365 dev tenant. So, your dev tenant should be something you're going to play around with and test Intune in. And your $150 credit may be on what you want to personally, build out a VM or two, and make sure you deallocate your VMs so you're not charged. And that's what you want to put in your storage account in that one, because the costs will be absorbed into that $150 Azure credit. So you got two ways to do it, and I believe that's true. Can someone confirm that? I hate to tell you, you get $150 as a DN.
Yeah, that doesn't come with the M365 dev tenant doesn't come with any credits. It comes with licenses. So you get the 25 Office licenses, and you can do most of the like non-storage based, non-consumption based stuff with that subscription. The what a lot of us have, like my company pays for an MSDN subscription, and so I get the $100. That's where the $150 credit comes from, is for the MSDN. Or Visual Studio, whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
And there's different tiers. So the enterprise gives you the $150, but the lowest tier of that gives you $50 a month in credits. So that would be how you would get the credits if you need them through the Visual Studio subscription.
Yeah, but as you can see, you can definitely offload your images into Azure, and it barely make a dent in your Azure costs.
Right.
And having them available anytime in any PE that's got PowerShell is lifesaver.
Yeah. I need to figure out the MSDN thing. Because I see I have the $150 credits. I know when I tried using one, when I first got the subscription 5 years ago and didn't know what I was doing, I created a tenant that I don't know what it is. And this $150 is going towards that tenant. So I have to figure out how to get it out of that tenant and over to the new one.
Hey Dawn,
Uh-huh.
if you DM me, I can help you get that. I went through that same struggle early on. So
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? So we got one person who's going to try this out this weekend. That's awesome. Can we get two?
I would love to. I just have some work stuff I have to get done this weekend. I have to learn ClickView because we're not allowed to have Power BI.
Uh-oh. Well, I guess I can turn this over if no one else has got any questions. And thanks a lot for letting me share this.
Yeah, thanks, David.